hand chat. All right.
Yeah.
He was Jon Rineman, comedian from New York City. He's done work with The Tonight Show. He's done work with WWE. We will get into that, and we will ask all the questions about why this got on TV. All right. We'll get into all those different things, but he has a new tabletop game called Antisocial Skills.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You can go to the website. Are you sure about this? This is Ass Skills.
Okay, look, here's the thing. There's been some controversy, as a friend used to say. Some people are calling it ass kills. Now, I look at that, Kevin, and I see A as an anti, S as in social, skills.com. But some people, they look at it, it's like a Magic Eye poster from the 90s. And they look at it and they say, well, goddamn, man, your website is asskills.com. You killing some ass at asskills.com? I'm going to sign up and go over and kill some ass. And I said, oh, it's antisocial skill. And I love killing ass. Okay, so kill some asskills.com. That was made.
John, I think you may be bringing in a different crowd than maybe you were expecting.
Well, we'll take it. We'll take it, Kevin. Any love is good love these days. And we're open-minded. That was the decision my business partners made. We had a different name. And then, as someone else says, plans change, pal. And I got the call at 9 a.m. and said, you're going to be the ass kills guy.
I want to type it on our stream, but I wonder if Facebook and YouTube would maybe catch those algorithms.
We had a hard time. I'm going to tell you right now. So if anyone wants to comment for us or whatever, we had a hard time. Yeah, we were up to the first. That set us back unexpectedly. And so it was like, oh, my God. And, yeah, that's my Twitter. I'm the ass. So, yeah. So now me and my daughter will be walking down the street someday, and someone will be like, hey, yo, ass kills.
Daddy, guy.
You can see I have my daughter throws some potatoes. You can see right here.
She lays them in.
She does. She is about 3.5 and the size of a 5.5-year-old. And
green, working green, working green.
I showed her a picture. I showed her picture to Dana Warrior, and she said, "John, I got to tell you, that's going to be you got to pay attention to that." And we've never showed her wrestling, her mother or I, and I don't know where she gets it, but she knows a few holds, and she works very stiff. And, so when you see us on the street and yell ass kills, she might run up and pull my shirt over my head and beat me up and give you a fun fan experience. So
and then tell you to go buy her an ice cream cone, at the same time.
Well, no, she'll buy the ice cream cone, stick it on my head. And so... but yeah, so I'm the ass kills guy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, all right. So if you don't know, Jon Rineman, already comedian, he's done work with Tonight Show, WWE. We'll talk about your writing with WWE and different things. But this game is very, very interesting. Obviously, a lot of people saying they're going to make the comparisons against Cards Against Humanity. A lot of people getting into games like Cards Against Humanity and tabletop games now, especially with quarantine. And now a lot of the games that you can kind of play online. Tell me about the game. How did it come together? Is this just a project you felt you needed to do in quarantine? Because as a comic, you can't go out and do as many shows, right?
Well, that's true. I mean, it's been an interesting few years, and I've just recently there's been podcasts and articles, and it's like they kind of steamroll. They kind of roll, and people start kind of asking for more and more and more. I did the AMA last week, and that's where we were blown. Like everyone wanted to hear about Vince, which I thought was great. Like I love talking about Vince and wrestling. And so what happened was, I was going through a divorce. I had a loved one who was sick, and then there was the lockdown. And so, plans got put on hold, and some projects were shelved. And it was like, well, let's regroup. And one of which is actually a wrestling themed thing that a friend and I are actually hoping to work with AEW on, believe it or not. And we're just kind of in the how do we, now that hopefully there's a vaccine and all that stuff, let's get out there and let's pitch it. And so, but that all got put on hold. And I was having a day where I was just feeling kind of down, and brought my daughter back. And, Sam Liberty, who's my friend of 20 years since the college, and also a big wrestling fan. And he said, hey, we're doing a play test of this new game. It's a role-playing game, and I think you might be good just to get some tips from. And so I said, sure. I got nothing else to do. And so I played, and then they had me back again the next day to play. And I started to notice that, by the way, it's Ass Kills down there. I just want to correct.
Saul's a big viewer of the show. He checks out all the time.
Thank you, Saul. Ass Kills. There's multiple kills. and then I noticed that they kept having me back, and it was a different group every day, and I started to feel like, why am I still on jury duty? And they said, well, how'd you like to come work on the game? And what if we gave you a budget and you got to hire some of your friends who were kind of had their whole years wiped out? These are people who, like Jenny Zagrino and Mike Kaplan and Jason Marcus, and people that Abby Crutchfield. I'll name them all. And just some guy. He has a gimmicky name, and of course John Roy, who you mentioned.
John, I've known John from comedy in Chicago, and he's just one of the most engaging people. The first time you meet him, you're just like, I just want to sit and listen to you talk the whole day.
Oh my god, yeah, we hit it off right away. People have noted, they're like, yeah, like we always just riff to like where I get the messages during the live games of like, guys, wrap it up. Like, we have to play, and so.
Comedians are those adults that are told that they're rambling on by their boyfriend or girlfriend all the time. Bring it in.
Yeah. So I was able to reach out to these people, and I was like, well, hopefully a few will say yes. And then I was really, really happy when everyone said yes. Mm-hmm. And we got together, and it was just great to be able to. It had been a couple of years, and I was in a weird place with trying to look back, as a lot of people did in quarantine, about the past and how you want to be forward, and wasn't really sure how I felt about all those years reading and writing jokes and looking back, and was it worth it? And it was just a good way to just do that again, but with just fun, and just to come up with funny situations. And that's the premise of the game, is it's you're put in a funny situation, you have to choose from one of three responses in each hand. You can't deviate. You can't improv. You have to do it. You can only change your inflection, or it's how you deliver it. And
so it almost forces you to like deliver a joke. It's like, it's kind of like
you have to do it. Yeah, you have to say the line that's there. And so it's not like, it's the Cards Against. You can kind of freestyle, and of course there's whose line. Where this is like you gotta do it, and it's all about how you sell. And that's so it kind of, when they were saying this to me, I flashed back to the brief, however it may be, but great WWE days of how you sell that line. And also all those times with Jimmy, and just going over like, just quick note, I think you say the joke this way, and I think that will save it, and that'll make it work. And it's fun to see regular people do that and come out of their shells at a tough time and have fun with this game. And then there's also, the difference is there's some challenges involved. So someone said to me, well, how is it different from Cards Against Humanity?
Yeah, that's the obvious question.
And I said, well, in Cards Against Humanity, you don't have to do it as Jack Nicholson. And you don't have to do it like you really have to go to the bathroom, or you're crying and ugly crying. And so And you have 10 seconds to make that choice of how and which line you're going to deliver. And so it's a thing that was, look, I'll be honest, I didn't want to be the face of this. I wanted to stay behind the scenes. And then we looked at our budget, and Sam was like, well, you kind of have to be. You're what we can afford. It's like Askill was what we could afford. And I said, okay. But it was fun. It really has been a fun way to keep up with people and re-engage with people and just perform again at a time when, I got to be honest, I really didn't feel like writing new stand-up material, and everything else is on hold. And it was like, well, how can you keep the muscles mentally going? And
how can you punch the bag?
Yeah, get your reps in and just kind of have some fun. And it just kind of took off. And now we're so close to our goal. And our deadline is Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. But we are very, very, very close. And it's 9 a.m. Eastern. I have to say that we're so close, and we're hoping to run through it full speed. And, it's fun. We've been getting people on Twitter and stuff and reaching out and making a lot of cool friends. So we've had a really, really good time doing this game.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about your time in WWE. Obviously, WrestleZone, people come to us for wrestling stuff. I've talked to comedians that have been able to work. We had Matt McCarthy on. He has a new album out a few weeks ago called Sober Dad. He wrote for WWE and consulted for them for some period of time. Comedians like Patrice O'Neal have notably talked about their time in the WWE creative experience. But for the most part, wrestling fans want to know what it's like to write for WWE, but really don't, because everyone seems to have a different experience. Some people say it's great. Some people say it's very challenging. What was yours like, and what were your biggest takeaways from it?
Well, mine was very unique in that, like I said, I was, at the time it was, I had a deal. I had a very controversial and still sort of mysterious the parting of ways with the Tonight Show, for which I will just come out and kind of like, as Bruce would say, the rumor and innuendo. I'll end that and say, not my fault, and I was not on the bad side of that, and the problem is it's still a mystery as to exactly who was. And so that was a very weird end. And there was about a 4-month window in 2019 where I got an email, I got a call from my agent one day in January. And he said, "How are you doing?" And I was like, well, just, and I literally said, "I'm kind of moving past it and I'm on some other thing." He said, "Well, they want you back at the Tonight Show." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "No, they don't." I go, well, they want me back, but they're not, He said, "No, there's a plan to bring you back." And so there was this, and it was like they just needed to kind of move some other pieces, so to speak, so that there wouldn't be any power struggle or whatever. And my response to that was, I don't care, man. Just like whatever it is. I just like, and it's a thing I listened to that really got me back into wrestling was Something to Wrestle with Bruce and Conrad. And Bruce became like this sort of almost like a guru for me in this kind of weird, funny way where I just identified with him so much. And I just loved listening to his podcast, and it made me laugh, and it got me through some tough times. And
they're long too. You sit down, you're with it for a while.
Yeah. But it taught me a lot about life. And the episode, "Why Was Bruce Fired?" Man, I
love that one.
Man, I wish I heard that one so long ago. I really wish I heard that one in 2017, because maybe the Tonight Show experience could have gone different, and I think it would have. And I don't think, other than Bruce, maybe anyone was happier, other than Conrad, of course. But when I heard he was back at WWE, and this was right when we were getting into the nitty-gritty of going back to Fallon, and I was like, oh my God. And I just wanted to get down to New York and get back in there, and then email Bruce and just take a chance and be like, I'm a fan, and you got me through some tough times, and we're both back. Well, long story short, the Fallon deal fell through very mysteriously. The guy who offered me the job and said, "You're coming back," 2 days later got killed in the New York Post for crapping on Lorne Michaels. And then very soon he was shown the door. And all deals that were handshake were void. And it kind of fell through the cracks. And at the same time, like I said, I was going through a divorce. And so I had seen for a while at the WWE, they were looking for people for the network. And I was interested in that because I love the network. And they kept trying to get me to come be a writer. And I just kept saying no. And then finally I said, well, you know what? Let's look at this. Let's take a chance and, as they say, learn a new hold. And so found out I had a couple friends working there, and I said, let's go do it. And so for me, it was a mixed bag. I would say that the first, you have that first moment where you're in your first meeting with Vince, or that moment where you meet Paul Heyman, or for me, it was Bruce. The moment that really I bugged out and had to really I was like texting friends like, dude, Bruce is in the room. Like, I just met Bruce. And, and I remember him having a one-on-one meeting with me very nicely. Like, oh, so we're going up for a first meeting with Vince. Are you nervous? And him and I was just like, it was such a surreal thing. I was like, this is my meditation app guy basically talking to me about a real thing.
Yeah.
And so it was, in short, one of those deals where there was some fun stuff, and I got to write with Bruce. It was goofy, but it was fun, and it was. I got to write the Kane 24/7.
I just lost him. Let's see if I can get him back here. Let's see where he is. Where'd you go? This happens in life. Let's see if I can get him back here in just a second. Give me 1 second, guys. I'll see if I can get Jon Rineman to rejoin me here. Don't know where he went. Hoping he comes back. Give me a second here. 1 second. Let me put a pause screen up here. Gotta love editing and all those different things. Pausing for time, huh? 1 second. There we go. Whatever. We're rolling with it, baby. Let me see. There we go. All right, good. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Come back. Come on back. Come on back. Come on back. Come on back. This is great for a live stream, isn't it? Man, hang on 1 second, guys. There we go. All right, cool. I'm back. There you are, man. It's all right. You're going to pop back in here in a minute. There we are.
John. There we go. That was how creepy was that?
It was weird. It happens. It happens.
Cut the mic, pal.
For people watching the live stream, it just the connection just cut out. We're fine. Most people will enjoy this on a podcast or reading on our website later on.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Okay, cool. Well, I got to write the Kane 24/7 thing and I got to do that with Bruce. And that was a very cool thing. As a favor on my last week when they knew I was leaving, they let me go in with Bruce and Bray and do a Firefly Funhouse, which was not my bag, but I was helping and filling in for somebody. And I didn't know. It was a surprise. And at the very end, Bruce just patted me on the back and said, "All right, John, go ahead, get to work, direct it." And it was just me and Bray. And Bray kind of gave me that wink, and it was just a really cool thing. And so they knew, there was some cool stuff, and it was really cool just I found myself better at just having ideas. And not anything major, but just little things like maybe just, how like someone might act when they end a match or things like that. And but it was a tough fit, and it was one of those things where it was like ships in the night, where it was like, I wish had I been younger, had I been, in my 20s, pre-Tonight Show, and the company been in a different place with different, it could have been cool, but it was just rough timing. But I will say that they helped me through a really, really tough patch in my life. They knew I was going through some stuff, and they let me finish my deal. They said, as long as you want to keep coming in, keep coming in. And I appreciate them for that. And, Bruce was great. Ed Koski, who is a name you don't hear a lot about because he's a very behind the scenes guy. Man, he is funny, and he is such a cool guy. And he's someone I wish I got to spend more time with. And Vince, look, everyone's different to different people. So, there's a lot of people, a lot of wrestlers who would say to me, certain person in comedy, love him. Great, right?
Yeah.
And now if I were to say to them, Vince McMahon, great, right? Well, we might have different answers. So everyone's a different thing to different people at different times.
What was your experience like with Vince McMahon? Because he's the Steven Spielberg of it. He's the main guy behind all of it.
Okay, so my experience, because I didn't have to fly too close to the sun, and so when you don't have to fly too close to the sun in a creative area, in a creative environment, you don't get burned. And so I'm sure if you were to get some truth serum into some people, they'd say, "Oh my God," and you hear the stories. But my experience with Vince McMahon was I learned so much from him. I don't think I've ever learned more from someone in such a short amount of time and left wanting to say, that like I wish I had more time, to pick his brain or to just observe it. And what I learned from him was just basic things like, I came from, an area where I'd been, I think people know I'm not telling tales out of school that there's been a lot of turnover at Fallon over the past couple of years. And just last week, they had a very, very dramatic week. They outdid WWE with all their behind the scenes stuff that kind of leaked out. And so that's been going on. And so a lot of that came from too many cooks in the kitchen, and it became a lot of, we'd like to do this. No, I just don't want to do it. Vince was a guy who was, well, why can't we do it? And if you said, all right, that was one thing I said, why don't we do this? And I remember him looking up, and it was kind of like a broken clock being right, twice say, why don't we do that? And taking the pencil out and writing it down. And it was really amazing to see someone who is famous for saying no, at least in front of everybody, at least in the public meeting. He would give every idea some thought. He would not precondition. That was something. So that if you were talking, he'd be respectful. He wouldn't cut you off. He wouldn't roll his eyes. He might do it later in the smaller group, as they say, for all I know. but he would at least he would keep you positive and feeling like, and he might say things like, well, here's why we can't do that, but good thinking. And
so he gave thought to what every idea at the table got his attention.
Every idea got his attention. He listened to every idea. He gave it thought. He really did think things through. And there's like, I told the story about on the AMA about, I had this idea where we do the thing where it's the empty picture frame in a Firefly Funhouse and like to signal someone was coming. And I don't remember if it was who we had in mind was who we stuck with, and the kayfabe pal. But we did end up going with someone that night that got a surprise fiend attack. And I thought it would be cool to have an empty frame to signal that. And Vince, I remember him sitting up on the video camera saying, well, that sounds cool. And then he kind of turned, he looked at me, he said, what's the line coming out of it? And I literally just flashed back to the Haunted Mansion at Disney World, where they say there's always room for one more. And I just blurted out, there's always room for one more. And he took the pencil out. He said, and you could see Bruce already texting Pete. And I was like, oh my God. And it was just such a great feeling. And, just like, I love that he always kept busy and that just ways to think about things. And, when we were talking about how you could, pay for the production of things and just, okay, well, let's think about it. How are we doing on merch, and what are some things we could create, and who could we do business with, and just like not saying no, thinking, how can we do this? And, this was long after I left, and Vince would have probably no idea who I am. And when I would have a bad idea,
he's had so many people write for him. He's had so many people.
When I would have a bad idea, Bruce would always pat me on the back and say, "Don, he'll forget you by tomorrow. You're good. You got a clean plate, buddy. Just go in with your good stuff, and you'll be good." And so, and Bruce may not remember me either because it's been a bit of a busy year for Bruce. But it was it was always sort of that thing. But even long after I've gone, even doing this project, the antisocial skills, and when they were like, when I was having that moment where I was like, so a couple of years ago, I used to go into the cue card room with Lorne Michaels and Jimmy Fallon and go over the Tonight Show monologue. And we were still in the neck and neck for number one, and there was still some hope. And now they're in third, and I'm the ass kills guy. What the hell happened? But around that time, that video came out of Vince taking a bump, and it was the one with him and Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah. So this would have been spring of last. So you were with the show within the last. I wrapped
up right around the holidays.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. This was right after. This was a few months after I left,
and
someone said, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, "Oh no!" And they were like, "No, you're gonna want to see this. This is a good one." And it was that video of Vince, 75 years old, in the full suit. And look, I'm not going to just look. Everyone has different experiences with everybody, and so just like I ask people not to, to just hear me out when I say like, okay, well, here's why I feel about certain things. I hear them too, but my experiences with Vince McMahon were great. It was very important to me, and it was helped me through a tough time. And I just loved that video came out right around the time, and they were like, "Are you going to be the ass kills guy?" And it was Vince in the three-piece suit at 75 years old, and he could tell someone was uncomfortable and nervous, and he wanted to make them feel safe and saying, "Here, I'm going to take the bump," and doing it and doing that thing at the end, like, "There, I'm done." And that was great. And I just that's even though I wasn't there for that, that's probably my favorite. That's what I will always think of with Vince McMahon. And when you think about and you see it happening, over on AEW now, all those guys where it's a real all hands on deck thing. And those are all guys, even though they're competing, they all learn from Vince. Chris Jericho has said he's learned from Vince, and Cody and Tony and everybody has. And it's just what you're willing to do for good business. And just like sometimes you got to get some egg on your face for the good of the team. And I don't think anyone's done that in entertainment ever more than Vince McMahon. I don't think any late night host or Saturday Night Live people has ever sacrificed themselves to be the butt of the joke to get someone over and to get their product and to save their company, which he's done so many times. So my impression of him, I was very fortunate in that I had a good experience with him, and that was very important to me.
So that's another thing is we get a lot of fan criticism, and that's what I see a lot at WrestleZone, that there's this thing that a 75-year-old Vince McMahon can't do WWE like he wants to do it. He's out of touch. Vince is out of touch. You've seen this phrase over and over and over again. But then you see something like that where he's working with someone who is a football player, and he's trying to get them to embrace the idea of just jump in. This is a wild circus. Everyone's taking a risk. You're taking a risk creatively of going into this wolf pack of a room to try and pitch these ideas, and everyone's competitive. So even when you're in the ring and you're a superstar, you're trying to do the same thing. Do you see that criticism and you have a different perspective of it? Because to me, I never understood that criticism that Vince is out of touch. He's constantly trying and failing. They have this massive beast that they feed that he's creative. That he's created. So my thing is, like, he made it. How can he be out of touch if he's making this thing?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's my thing, is like, he is who he is. And that's the other thing I want to say is, like, I mean, I won't go into it, but there was a funny story about him trying to build we were going to have to build a hospital wing, but then we didn't. And then he went back. He felt bad that we then weren't building this hospital wing. And he actually was like, I should actually do that anyway. And he wrote down hospital. So it's this thing that kind of went viral last week. So I got to see the softer side of him. And so the thing is, this thing about Vince forgets everybody, he doesn't. And in meetings, he would bring up names that maybe could be brought in, and people that you'd be surprised at. You'd be like, you do business with them? And he'd ask about guys in AEW and how they were doing. And it was just like, that was such a different experience than what I was coming from, is that, Vince really does keep track of everybody. And there is that thing of the never say never. And I got to see that firsthand. And I got to see people that were back with the company firsthand. And some people it worked, some people it didn't. There is that, he's two people. We're all two people. And so, yeah, I think there's one side, if I had to guess, because I'm very similar in this realm and I'm working on it. I'm in therapy. We all should be. I think there's a side to him that I can relate to, where when you get pushed and told you can't do something, well, that's when the kind of the fiendish side of you come out. And you say, okay, I'm going to get a little combative here. But then there's this other side where he's got a heart, and he looks back and he says, I wish things ended better with this person, or I wish, we did things better or whatever. And I think that's where the never say never sort of thing kind of comes from. And so I think as far as being out of touch, look, on the basics of business, there's nobody more in touch than Vince, from what I saw, on the basics. And everyone that tries to get the shortcuts and figure out, like, well, I know how to do it, then he'll very quickly, but in a nice teaching way, explain, well, this is how you do it. And he's a guy who has been in the movies. And since when did No Holds Barred come out? That's the last one, probably.
We make movies, pal. What did he say in Beyond the Mat? We make movies.
He thinks they're the movies. So yeah, that is true, and there is some of that. Yeah, I mean, there are little things like you didn't know Charles Barkley was not playing anymore and stuff like that. But it's like that's not his job to know that.
No,
that's not his world. And and so I think that as far as him being out of touch, it's just such a hard thing to do right now. Where it's like like I'll give you an example, like the Rusev Lana thing, and I was there. For that. So okay. Imagine going through a real life divorce,
and then you're helping create that story.
It's Paul walking around the room with this handkerchief, wiping. Okay, everybody, Rusev leads, and I'm like, to Paul's credit, on a man-to-man level, Paul helped me through a lot of that. He'd been through that, but then it was like, then he had to go into the room, and I was like, Paul, I was like, can I go right for SmackDown? Like I was like, this is tough, man. And so,
did you mainly write on Raw? Were you brand specific, or are you writing on both?
First of all, like I would say towards the end there, it was just not working out. And so it was very little writing, it was more just me kind of just helping out verbally. But yeah, I was on the Raw side, and that was kind of a bummer because Ed went over to SmackDown, and that's where Bruce ended up being. And I think I was like, that's when I kind of looked at it and I was like, I'm in the wrong room, and this is where I should be. And Bray's over there. And I was like, all the people I would work with and work well with are over there. And that started to get tough. And but the thing with Rusev Lana is Yeah, 20 years. I'm gonna sound like I'm being, but I'm just being real. 20 years ago, that's a hot storyline. That's a good 2020. That 20, even the late 90s, that can work and be a good like thing. And there were some good beats in there, and I love that ending. I'll never forget that ending of that episode where that comes out, and then when you're like, oh my god, that's the end, and then the Fiend goes after Seth. I was like, man, that's great. And that was storytelling that I learned from Heyman that I've since thought about and taught to other people, like that the way of doing the like two ends and how they can kind of work out together, even though one's coming and then you have the surprise one. And but the problem is, it's they're all going on Instagram, they're all going on Twitch, and they're having their podcasts, and they're out of character. And so the curtain comes down, and they do shows about how it's made, and I love it as a fan. But it's just what AEW is doing that's different. Is that once a week, and they all live the gimmick. And like Orange Cassidy in particular, I love Orange Cassidy, and I have to admit I didn't get it at first. I didn't get the fascination. So I went down a rabbit hole of just his promos, which are really just non-answers. And I saw the way it was done.
I've been in a room we tried to interview him. It's very difficult.
But
very difficult.
But I saw the way it was done. And so it's once a week, and they're always who they are. And and Jericho and everyone's saying character on Twitter. And so I think that's why AEW's popping a little bit more right now, is they've found a way to make, as Bruce would say, take control of the moment and make it work for you. And whereas I think at WWE, it's like this thing of, well, we're going to run our plays, sort of your sports team, and it's worked before, and we'll figure it out. And I think it's just as we say, what we have here is a failure to communicate. I think if people there, could just say, well, how can we utilize this, and how can we? And I think that's a lot of the frustration, is that we all had pitches, we all had ideas, we all had ways to try to be more active on social media and make the shows look a little more less slick and a little more raw, no pun intended. But it's just, there's so many moving parts, and there's 3 different shows, and at the time there was a football league, and it was just there was just so much going on. And again, as everyone says, it all has to go through Vince. And so I don't think he's out of touch. I just think he's just got a full plate all the time. And it's just, it's like hitting a baseball. You really have to get him at the right time, from what I've seen. And like I said, almost everything I got on was just stuff I saved and said in the meeting, and he liked it. And then the stuff that you would spend hours poring over, it would never even make it to him. And so,
tell me about one of those. What was like a big produced pitch that you had that you thought was a great idea for characters on WWE that didn't happen? I always want to hear the story that didn't happen, and that people will be like, "Oh, I would have loved that," or something.
All right, so I had one in particular, and this is where I kind of got a bullseye on my back, because the lead writer of Raw. I could be reading him wrong again. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think he was particularly enamored with me. I don't think he thought I was all that great. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that he was tasked with completely rewriting the Raw 25th anniversary show that Jimmy was supposed to host. And then at the last minute, as Jimmy often does, says, I just don't feel like doing this. And that screwed me that day too, by the way. Out there for everyone. So just so you know, that was a tough day too, because I had to write it on our end. And so I was like at 1 p.m. while running the monologue, also saying, is this good? Did WWE check out? Yes, they're all good. And then get to the dressing room, ready to go to the show. Okay, are you ready? Oh, I'm not doing it. He's just like, again, I'll never forget. Jimmy's drinking a Coke and eating a cheeseburger from McDonald's. I'm like, what do you mean you're not doing it? They cut it? He's like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go as a fan. I'm like, what? So anyway, I had a bullseye in my back from that, being a Fallon guy. And then made it worse by pitching what they don't like it when you pitch a comedy idea in general. You always hear Jim Cornette, well, I don't like the comedy wrestling and all that stuff.
Funny don't draw money, right?
Yeah, so I made the mistake. So here was my idea. At the time, we weren't doing anything with Robert Roode. And I just remember seeing him outside of the ring, looking at, just looking at a battle royal, and he just looked bored and sad. And I really looked at it, and I was like, man, he just doesn't look like he has. And he's just like, he's kind of it was sort of an 80s gimmick. Like it sort of had that presentation. And so my idea for him that did get close was, and a lot of people, I think Bruce even looked at it and thought it was funny. And I do Dewey Foley helped out with it. And it was that he would try to be like an influencer. And it was him like looking at things. Yeah, I know. And so you say it out loud now, and you're like, yeah, it's no wonder it didn't work out with me, the ass kills guy at WWE. But my idea was that he was going to be Hot Tops Rob, and that he was going to come on and do a segment for like 90 seconds a week where he just went over pop stories, but like kind of didn't quite get it. Like he would get 80% of it right, but then not all of it.
He would have a dad approach to like the new TikTok dance,
like a cooler, like a TikTok version of like Bobby Moynihan's second-hand news guy on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
and I was really excited. Like but the thing is, like as they say, work yourself into a shoot. I got so into it that I really, really wanted to do it. And then next thing I knew, I looked up and he wasn't even on our roster anymore. And it was like, whoops, So that was my idea, and they ended up pairing him with Dolph, and that ended up working out great. And he was probably happier doing, but who knows? And so it would have been fun, and that was always my regret, is that I never got to go with someone and just be like, let's try this out. Let's see how this works and see if you're comfortable. Let's just shoot one or two. And we had a script written, and it was funny, but never made it to Robert. And then I was gone, and then he was gone for a while afterwards. And the idea kind of went away. And weirdly, you saw them try to do the same sort of a similar thing with the Street Profits, where they were basically doing Weekend Update.
Yeah.
Some of those were pretty good. I was jealous because it was right after I was gone. Right after I was like, you get rid of me, and then that's when you lay me off with a bunch of other people, and then that's when you do my kind of thing.
Well, they did the brand switch where they flipped the tag titles, and they brought New Day, a very fun, charismatic team, over to Raw, and the fun, charismatic team from Raw went over to SmackDown. And it was neat when New Day essentially did the Street Profits bit as them, which I thought that was really clever and fun. And that, as someone who's been in a writer's room, was like, that had to be a writer's idea. That had to be like a writer's idea. That like somebody said, let's take this part, move around, and have someone cosplay as somebody else is kind of interesting. Or maybe not. I don't know. I mean, what is your level of interaction with talent when you're doing these type of things? How creative, how much do they contribute at some point? Obviously, there's some talents that have a lot more say. There's some that don't. That's what we hear.
My experience there was, here's what we're going to try to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And we would think it up. And then sometimes Paul might call him in the room, and we would and then he would, once they got him on the phone, he'd leave, so he would be a private conversation. He always kept things, respectful. And then sometimes we'd get the answer right away, and that was usually a good answer. Or sometimes we'd come in the next day and it would be, so-and-so doesn't want to do this. Like I know Paul had a really interesting plan laid out for someone, and then at the last minute they just were like, it wasn't a this doesn't work for me brother thing, but it was like a very well thought out, I like this, but here's why I don't feel comfortable. And so we just didn't do it. And so and that was the other weird thing too, is I felt like that Steve Buscemi meme of him in a high school trying to be like one of the kids. I was like, man,
hi local teens.
I was like, man, this ship has sailed for me, man. I'm too old to be learning this stuff just now. When they say it's easier to learn a language when you're young. And so at least at WWE, now I don't know, it could be different. Like I've had friends say like, man, you should reach out to, because I actually have the guy that I ran the monologue with, Fallon, is really good friends with Tony Khan. And so there are people who've said, hey, when if there's ever a time and you got something to do, you should reach out and see. And I
want to ask you more about this AEW project, but I understand it's in the works, so it's too hard.
It's in the works, and it's with a friend, and it's really, really super cool. And we're just waiting to. It's just everything's weird right now, about what TV is going to be, and they're a part of it, but it's with a production company in North Carolina, and they came to me. It was a friend who, same thing, sort of like Antisocial Skills, and said, hey, how would you feel about pitching some ideas to us? And and then one day I was like, I have this thing, and I sent it to him, and I was really hesitant because I wrote a wrestling pilot with Jimmy, actually, back in 2012 called Slam. And it was a classic. It was a kind of a lesson of WWE where it started out a pretty good idea, and then Jimmy and I got it to a place of, wow, this is killer. And then like all the hands from the network and the studio got involved. And by the end of it, I looked at it and I was like, the hell is this? I was like, this is not. And he too was like, what happened? It was like, I don't know, man. They cut all our stuff and it didn't go anywhere. And so when he was like, we like your wrestling idea. And I was like, oh God. I was like, so wrestling again? And he's like, no, why? And so we talked through. And so, I'll just say that, there's some unscripted series that are really doing well right now in the wrestling world. Podcasts are very popular, and we all need a good laugh. We all need to feel happy and fun. And AEW in our dealings with them have been very supportive, but they're really just like, it's a matter of us trying to figure out, okay, so like now, when can we go make this, and how can we go about doing it? And we have
you're still sort of at the pilot stage.
We have some names attached, and we're just ready to go in and pitch. But yeah, that's all I can say. But
will this be scripted or unscripted, do you think?
Oh, my thing would be scripted.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you can't give out too much more because I don't want to stink it up. Yeah.
No, all I can say is I'm not speaking outside of, but like my friend and I can't give up his name.
Sure.
Because it's a name in the wrestling world. And I can't give it up, but
understood. Don't be mad at him, guys. He gave us a bunch of scoops. All right. Don't go off.
It's someone that you might have to Google and then go, oh my gosh.
Okay.
So, he's sort of in a different, not in the business anymore, but doing this with this production company and has a deal. And so we both agreed that, like, man, this could be the next Ted Lasso. You know, that show on Apple with
great idea.
And it's different in that it's laughing, but it's sort of the darker humor side of that. So it's sort of like if you were able to look back at some craziness and laugh at it. And I think that's what we're all trying to do in 2021 is just like, can we like, whew, all right. Can we all laugh and be friends again and all that? And we've all
after last week, man.
We've all and Tim and I have said, and everyone that's like, same thing as the game. Everyone jumped on, and it's like people. I was like, I don't know. Do you want to do this? They're like, I love this. They're like, okay. So I'm able to go back and say, I got so and so that wants to do it. And there's someone we have in mind that like I blurted it out to the guys from Antisocial Skills last week, and I said, guys, you can't tell anybody this. But there's someone in mind that would be the protagonist, and if you knew it and you saw it, you'd be like, "Oh my god!" And it just has all the makings of a great show, but it's just TV's tough, man. It takes a long time, and you got to get agents involved, and you got to get meetings set up, and sometimes
if you're doing a pro wrestling-esque Ted Lasso type sports-oriented dramedy, I'm on board.
You sold
me on that.
Let me clarify. This is straight up comedy. This is
cool.
This is feel good, and it is funny as hell. And it's just we got to get the pieces together. And we've had setback. We have executives that we were going to meet with, and then they got transferred to a different department. And then we've had agents that then they got moved on. And so it's just like trying to partner with somebody and trying to work and all that stuff. But it's a love letter to something I love. It's all positive. It's all good vibes. And, no sand being tossed at anybody. And it's something that we hope everyone can enjoy. But we'll see what happens. But that's that now, hopefully after Thursday at 9, with hopefully meeting the goal on asskills.com.
You wear it like an albatross around your neck.
That was a thought. They actually said there was a plan for me to wear a shirt that said asskills.com. Every time we have a game tonight at 9 p.m. and there was a plan. Every time you do a game, you wear the shirt. And then I finally said, no. I said, because we were also talking to some TV people about this. And like I said, okay, look, when I have the house and the security that can protect me and my daughter from ass kills chance, I'll start wearing the ass kills shirt. But until then, no.
When my daughter understands that ass kills puts food on the table.
Yeah, ass kills puts well, that'll put some ass kills in the seats. But shout out to Tony Schiavone and Nick.
There's an ass kills every 18 inches in those seats, right?
Yeah. But Yeah, you know, but I gotta say, we had a moment where we had a glitch when we first set this thing up, and there was like behind the scenes, there was a little bit of like, can we make this work? And there was some talk within us talking about doing it, and it kind of felt good. I thought of that Vince video of him taking that bump, and I thought of him saying, "Well, let's make this work." And you know, people complain, but I loved that about him, and that was, I think, a weird, you know, that was a difference between sometimes I didn't fit in at Fallon so well, is that, you know, people would hate when we had a late breaking story and had to write new jokes, or people would hate. I looked at it as an opportunity. I loved it because it was something I loved to do, and I loved to.
Can you imagine what it was like for Saturday Night Live on Saturday afternoon, like when they got that news, you know?
Yeah, I loved that, and and it wasn't healthy, and you know, it wasn't, you know, there was a time to go, and I should have gone sooner, but I love that. I'm different, and then I loved being up, and I guess it's because I started out with like Leno was a friend of a friend, and so I got to learn a little bit there. But I love that feeling of when you're cooking at 1 a.m, you know, and you have good stuff for the next day, and you're like, oh, here we go, and the world's asleep, and I'm at work. And so I loved getting to see it. There's nobody like that like Vince, and there's nobody like that like anybody in the wrestling business, which in my opinion is it's just my most beloved form of entertainment, and I love that world, and I love them being into that. And so they you know, it was a great, you know, it was short. It was very sad when it ended. On my Instagram, I have a picture up of the day I got let go, laid off, and then I took it very sad, not knowing I was the first. There was a chain of people that day and that week, but I was number one. And so I was like, oh God. And so there's a picture I took, because I was like, well, this is my lowest moment right here. I just got let go by, you know, the Yankees or the Celtics or whatever. You know, this is the team I grew up watching, and I just got cut. And then there's flash forward about a year, and there's this weird Reddit AMA that pops up, and there's like 10,000 people on it. So that's kind of how it started and how it's going of 2020. And but it's, you know, I was finally able to look back and say, you know, what a weird, fun experience. And you know, hopefully down the line, you know, people like Ed and Bruce and all those folks, we can, you know, hopefully I'll be down in New York. Hopefully that'll be allowed, because right now it's not allowed. It's not really allowed. But hopefully that'll be allowed, and we can get a cheeseburger or something.
Dude, I work on radio, and I'm doing it from here. You know what I mean? Like, so I get it.
I've been hosting. I'll tell you where I am right now. I'm in my late grandmother's apartment. That's why it looks like a grandmother's apartment.
So you're in the TV show AP Bio. You're in the show AP Bio.
I kind of am.
Yeah.
So my local newspaper did a story on the game, and the headline was nice, but the first sentence of it was, Jon Rineman is back in New Hampshire after painful exit from Tonight Show, divorce.
I can read the exact line. Jon Rineman is looking for a happier ending this summer than he was experiencing during the pandemic as an out-of-work comedy writer locked down in Northampton and recently divorced.
Yes. And there's an even briefer one that's just more like, it really reads as like, Jon Rineman, after a painful exit from a Tonight Show, Jon Rineman, it just literally said Jon Rineman is back in the area after a painful exit from the Tonight Show, a divorce, and having a stroke. And that was just it. And then it was the story, because they do a bunch of them. And I was like, I got to frame that, man. That's my friend Tommy Rico, who I get him a shout out. There's no bigger fan of wrestling, and man, he and I talk every week like old ladies. We say, did you listen to Bruce this week? And we get on the phone, we'll talk about it. And he said the great line, which was, that reads like a Netflix movie description. And he said, you are a Jason Bateman character. And I said, I know. And he said, but you're also the ass kills guy. I said, yeah, it is worse in a way.
I want to talk Tonight Show with you forever. I'm a big Tonight Show NBC comedy fan. I would love to be able to talk more about that, but we got some business to do. We got
we'll do it another time.
Coming on Thursday. Antisocial skills. You guys have some kind of practice rounds of this that we can try.
Well, let's try it. Are you ready to play?
Askills.com.
Askills.com. Yes.
I can try this. I have one up here, and it'll say you have a judge and you have everyone else. So what's the format?
So here's how the game usually works: is you have a judge, and they give a situation. So you go on the website, you play the free version, try it out. You click generate situation, and then they read the situation, and then everyone else has to click generate response. And you get 3 responses. You have to pick one of those responses. You have to stick to it. And sometimes there's a challenge attached, and you have to do it. And since it's just me and you, I figured I'll be the judge.
Okay.
You're going to be the guinea pig. Be ready to generate your response. I just happen to have a few relevant situations here. So I'm going to give you a sitch.
Okay.
Are you ready? Please generate.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
You're ready? Here's your situation. You just missed your run-in cue at WrestleMania 8. You turn to Vince McMahon and say,
Vince, how do I get over? Do I have to get out there now?
Oh no! What you got to choose from your responses.
My responses. I'm generating responses. Okay, all right. So I just clicked it.
Hey, you're Papa Shango. You just missed your run-in cue, Vince. You turn to a furious Vince and say,
"They call me the one-eyed, one-horn, flying purple pussy."
I like that, Erica. Can we patent the one-eyed pussy eater? What if he had 3 eyes? Okay. So
put it on a t-shirt.
Put it on a t-shirt, pal. Okay, let's do another one.
Let's do another one.
Let's do 2 more. You just fell flat on your face. Oh, this is about no one in particular. You just fell flat on your face during your big WCW debut.
Okay, all right. I think we know what we're doing here.
To say it, but now here's a challenge. To save it, you explain, but there's a challenge here. You have to say your response, Kevin, as the Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm going to reset. So, Macho Man Randy Savage, you just fell flat on your face during your WCW debut. So, to save it, you get up and say...
Just so everyone listening or watching, I have 3 options, and all of them sound even more aggressively ridiculous with the Macho Man voice in my head. But I'm going to go with this one. Does this rash look like Paul Reiser?
Ooh. Madness, macho madness about you. Yeah.
I also could have said Horsabunga.
Yeah, you could have.
Or I eat assholes and bananas.
Hey, pal, that's rumor innuendo, pal. I don't know about that one. Let's move right along. So this is our final round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. And this should be an easy one, I think. You blank on your catchphrase mid promo. So instead, okay, now there's a challenge here. You got to say your response like Vince.
I got to say my response like Vince. We've been talking a lot about Vince.
You got to say your response as a shout out to Vincent Kennedy McMahon. You have to say it. You blank on your catchphrase mid promo. So instead, you blurt out,
"Drop the bazooka, kumquat."
Yeah.
And let me you know that the word kumquat is spelled the way it shouldn't be spelled, but much more fun. So yeah. I also could have chosen I permanently banned from a Build-A-Bear workshop because I built a bear that was too woke. Or this one I think is this. I should have chose this. This is where I know I got it wrong. I should have said this like Vince McMahon, premature ejaculator. I barely even know her.
Yeah.
So I think option 3 would have been the best one. Yeah. This is an incredibly fun game.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, and so I mean, I could see, especially with if you have smart-ass friends, if you have that friend that just says the inappropriate thing all the time, this is the game for them. If you have the friend who doesn't say the inappropriate things, it's very meek or very nice and sweet. It would be very, very fun to make this happen. Maybe not a game to play with your partner's parents around, but I think it'd be funny if you got them to say this stuff. I would be laughing my ass off if you got someone's girlfriend or boyfriend's parents to say some of this stuff. This would be great.
You gotta watch game. You got to watch who you play it with, but it's a really, really fun game. And I got to point out too, if you go on our website and you go to cheap plug, go to the buy now section. That's just our Kickstarter. It's just 3 guys with a small business with an eye and a dream, and trying to hit that goal. And it's by 9 a.m. on Thursday, and that's it. And so polls close, and so we don't have any.
The polls close. They're not counting.
We don't have any mail-in ballots, so ours is that's it. So if you go there, but if you go through what we're trying to do and what comes next, and one of the things we're trying to do, it's a challenge that we've issued to fans. We're trying to do like celebrity ass kills off, and so we have some one where it's like, who's the greatest legendary rock drummer? Ringo Starr or John Stamos? It's like the showdown. It's like, technically, he's a Beach Boys drummer, so yeah, it kind of works. He's a Beach Boys drummer. So one of them we have is Mick Foley, who a shout out to Dewey, who I think I drove Dewey nuts because Dewey's a very low key guy. And a very nice guy. And he was probably like, what is this Mark doing in the room? And I was Dewey. After you're gone, I was asking the same question. But very sweet guy who I love to follow on Twitter. And and I love Mick too. And so Mick might play along, but we're trying to set up Mick versus the Iron Sheik. We're trying to get
that'd be hilarious.
Trying to see who can get by tweeting the hashtag #AssKills. So #AssKills. If you just tweet that hashtag at both the Iron Sheik and Mick Foley, and just keep doing it. Everyone start doing it and see who you can get to respond first. And I have a hunch, knowing people's internet behavior, who it might be, and he may not be all that pleased with being called the ass kills, and he might pile drive my neck jabroni. But you know what, man? That's what we all got to. We all got to take a bump sometime. So, and by the way, quick story. When I sold Slam, he actually did. I got a weird email one day at work, and it said, "This was the pilot." It said from the Iron Sheik, and I forwarded it to my agent. I said, "Is this the real Iron Sheik?" He goes, "Yes," and it just said, "Are you the for real or the jabroni?" And so without missing a beat, I just wrote back, "I am the for real." And he wrote, "That's good, Bubba."
That's good, Bubba.
Yeah, and
baby, Shiggy baby, take care of you.
Shiggy baby, and any face of Foley, hey, come out and play with us. Play some kill some ass on AssKills.com.
Kill some ass. Kill some ass with your friends and family. Get the game. It is Antisocial Skills, a tabletop game. This is incredibly fun. This was just fun doing it with you. And
I should mention about just real quick. So another thing, those not safe for work ones we were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That expires Thursday at 9 a.m.
Okay. So you
want to get the full game with all the dirty jokes, including one that may or may not have to do with an infamous space shuttle and a teacher from New Hampshire that I did not write, but somehow snuck it in there and stuff like that. You got to do it by Thursday at 9. And also check us out. We got some live hosted experiences for people who may be separated from their friends and loved ones on Thanksgiving. But you can hop on and we'll play a game of Antisocial Skills with me and the writers, and we'll have a good time.
Will there be a digital version of this that people can play as well? Or
we're working on that. We're talking to a couple of companies, and there's going to be. This could be a weird thing, and I may be the AssKills guy. Yeah, and so we're working on that. We have a couple people we're talking to, and that'd be great. But right now, you can try the free version and play on Zoom or Google Chat or whatever with friends. And
this was so much fun. Just you and I going back and forth and kind of like challenging each other, and it reminded me of being after a comedy show, hanging out with a comic and just throwing the ball around, and also hang out with your friends that are just funny. Not everyone has to be a comedian. You have a friend who's comedic in that way, and the game is really, really fun. And like I was playing around with it before we were talking today, and I was just like, this is such an ingenious idea from comics to make that experience of hanging out with comics come into a real conversation. And I think we need that more now than ever because we feel so separated. Yeah. We can have conversations, but like, what is it that gets us together? Everyone's doing like a Zoom happy hour, or they're trying to like throw fun onto something that isn't fun there. This is fun from genuine conversation and challenges and busting chops and stuff like that. Go to Ask wrestlingskills.com for everything you need to do, and get in on the Kickstarter. Give whatever you can to make this happen. And when the game comes out, because it seems like this game is going to come out, get the game. This is going to be really, really fun. This is going to be one of those fun things when we all get the needle in the arm sometime next year. This is going to be the thing you want to bring to someone's house.
Well, I don't know if I put it that way on a wrestling conversation there, but yeah, when we get that vaccine, the COVID needle in the arm, and
needle in the arm,
that needle in the arm. When we get the okay needle in the arm, we'll all get to get it. Game weirdly, the physical version comes out right when you get back together with people. So at all times.
There you go. And so a good time. This is one of those things where we're all kind of looking ahead for that good time when we're on the other side. And this is something you definitely want to have be a part of those first few get-togethers. People are you have those first few parties when the time comes next year. You can't just come with nothing.
You're gonna run out. You're gonna realize real quick. Oh man, I kind of miss lockdown. So we bail you out and say
we gotta bring a dip to their house.
Yeah, After 5 minutes, you say, I don't.
Oh, did I lose John? Please don't tell me I lost John. Jon Rineman is ended up here with us. You can follow him on Twitter at Rinemania. Oh, there you are, John. I thought I lost you for a second. At Rinemania. Of course, are you going to be touring and doing any comedy sometime next year on the other side? Do you think you're going to get back on the road at all or no?
I hope so. There's one offer that's tentative that's just up in New Hampshire. And then there's a comedy studio down in Boston. I drop in their live shows whenever I can. And we'll see. But we're doing a lot of live games. Like we're doing a live antisocial skills game tonight. So if you find us on Twitter and you find me on Twitter at 9:00, and then thereafter you can watch us play, and that might be the thing for a little bit. It's so hopefully I miss it. And I miss my friends, and hopefully to get back to it.
Well, I'm right there with you, man. Thank you so much for the time. I know we were going to talk for a little bit, but you opened up really that boardroom, what that experience is like in WWE, in the Tonight Show, and so much more. Well, definitely, when we get the game out, we got to talk again. We got to talk when the game's out.
Yeah, I think we'll have more to talk about then. It'll be fun.
Definitely. Thank you so much for the time, John. Appreciate it.
Kevin. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.